Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing your world has been edited, colors slightly shifted, familiar faces unrecognizable, streets rearranged just enough to feel wrong. No glitch in the matrix, no cosmic prank, just a tiny update in the way your brain processes reality. That's not science fiction. That's what your brain is doing every second, constructing, editing, and maintaining a version of the world that feels solid, obvious, and inevitable, but is actually a carefully engineered hallucination you've learned to agree with. Tonight, we're going to pull back the curtain on what I'll call reality architecture, the invisible system by which perception builds worlds. Not just the physical world you see, but your social world, your emotional world, even your sense of who you are. By the end, you'll never look at reality the same way again, and that's exactly the point. In this video, we'll explore how your brain isn't just a camera recording the world, it's an architect, constantly drawing blueprints, predicting what's out there, and then bending your perception to fit those expectations. Neuroscientists now argue that we don't passively see reality, we actively build it. We'll unpack the science behind this, explore wild illusions that expose the tricks, and then go deeper into how culture, language, technology, and belief systems act like software frameworks for your personal reality. As you watch, notice which parts resonate a little too strongly. That's where your own architecture is most exposed. If you're into deep dives on consciousness, psychology, and how to live more deliberately, consider subscribing and tapping the notification bell so you don't miss future explorations. And try to stay with me all the way to the end. We'll finish with practical tools to debug your perception and consciously redesign parts of your reality. Let's start with a simple but unsettling idea. You don't experience the world directly. You experience a model of the world that your brain constructs from noisy, incomplete data. Your eyes don't give you a full resolution picture. Your ears don't stream perfect audio. Senses are low bandwidth channels filled with gaps and ambiguities. To cope, your brain becomes an architect under extreme constraints. It uses prior experience, built-up beliefs, and learned patterns as a kind of blueprint. Then it fills in the missing details, assuming that what's usually true is probably true. Again, you perceive the result of this guesswork as what's out there. That's why two people can witness the same event and walk away with totally different realities. They're not lying. Their internal blueprints are simply different. Reality for each of them is a negotiation between raw data and the stories their brains already prefer. To understand this architecture, we need one of the most important ideas in modern neuroscience: predictive processing. Instead of your brain passively waiting for sensory input, it constantly predicts what's about to happen, what you'll see, hear, feel, and then compares those predictions with incoming data. Think of it as a gigantic, real-time simulation. The brain generates a best guess model. There's a table, a wall, your phone in your pocket. Sensory input mostly serves to correct errors in that model. When reality matches prediction, your brain relaxes. When it doesn't, you feel surprise, confusion, or threat. This has a critical consequence. Perception is largely top-down. What you expect shapes what you experience. The better your brain's predictions, the more efficiently you move, but also the more locked in your existing reality becomes. Your inner architect prefers to renovate old blueprints, not design from scratch. Illusions are like debug tools for reality architecture. They expose where the code is being cleverly compressed or outright hacked. Take the famous checker shadow illusion, where two squares that are the same shade look completely different because of a cast shadow. Your brain assumes how light behaves, how objects relate, then corrects the raw data to fit that model. You see the correction, not the pixels. Or consider motion-induced blindness. A static dot disappears when surrounded by moving patterns. Your brain decides the dot is probably noise and edits it out. Reality, as you experience it, is optimized for meaning and survival, not accuracy. These glitches are not failures, they're features of an architecture that prioritizes coherence. The unsettling part is realizing that illusions aren't rare exceptions, they're just rare moments when you notice the editing process that is always running in the background. So, where do these predictive blueprints come from? A huge part is learning. From birth, you're training a massive model of how the world works. But here's the twist: you don't train it alone. Parents, teachers, media, peers, algorithms all act as co architects. They offer templates: how relationships are supposed to feel, what success looks like, who is trustworthy, what counts as normal. These templates become structural beams in your inner world. Once installed, they're self-reinforcing. You notice evidence that fits your blueprint and ignore or downplay what doesn't. Over time, your reality becomes a curated exhibition rather than a raw feed. Think about the first time you realized your family's version of how people are wasn't universal. That jolt of culture shock is your architecture colliding with someone else's. Reality was never just out there. It was negotiated inside a social construction site you didn't know you were on. Now let's zoom into one powerful architectural tool: language. Words aren't just labels, they are chisels that carve distinctions into the chaos of experience. If your language has many words for snow, you literally perceive more kinds of snow. If your culture has rich vocabulary for emotions, you can parse your internal landscape with finer resolution. Conversely, if all your negative feelings are stress, you'll build a crude, monolithic room in your mental house where everything uncomfortable gets shoved. Language also encodes value judgments. Call someone a customer, patient, or enemy, and your brain automatically loads different scripts about how the world should be arranged around them. Over time, repeated phrases: "I'm not a math person," "people always leave," "the world is dangerous," harden into structural walls. They constrain what you can imagine doing, feeling, or becoming. Change the language, and you begin to quietly re-architect the possible. Attention is your reality spotlight. Wherever it points, detail appears. Wherever it doesn't, the world fades into low-resolution background. Psychologists call this inattentional blindness. You can stare straight at something and not see it because your architecture has decided it's irrelevant. Think of the famous experiment where people miss a person in a gorilla suit walking through a basketball game. The brain prioritized the counting task. The gorilla never made it into the constructed scene. Your everyday life works the same way. If your inner blueprint says people are mostly hostile, you'll unconsciously spotlight rudeness, conflict, and danger. Acts of kindness exist, but remain in the shadows of your awareness. This means attention is an active design tool. Intentionally training what you notice: gratitude, opportunities, patterns, your own biases, literally reshapes the felt texture of the world you inhabit. Emotions are often treated as raw reactions to reality, but in this architecture model, they're more like status reports about how your predictions are going. When events match your expectations, you feel ease or boredom. The blueprint is holding. When something violates your model in a good way, surprise gift, unexpected success, you experience joy or excitement. When violations feel threatening, rejection, failure, ambiguity, you get fear, anger, or sadness. Crucially, your emotional patterns are shaped by earlier construction phases. If your childhood blueprint equated conflict with danger, even mild disagreement can trigger a full alarm. Your present reality becomes over-fortified, full of emotional barricades against threats that may no longer exist. Seeing emotions as architectural feedback changes the question from "why am I like this?" to "what model of the world is this emotion protecting? And is that model still accurate?" That shift alone begins to loosen rigid walls inside your experience. Let's move from individual minds to shared worlds. Societies are massive reality architecture projects. Laws, institutions, norms, myths. These are collective blueprints we agree to inhabit. Money is a great example. It's just paper or numbers in a database, but we share a story about its value. That story is so well architected that it feels more real than trees or rivers, which we casually destroy to protect abstract accounts. National borders, professional roles, even time schedules are socially constructed architectures. They don't exist in nature, yet they profoundly organize your perceptions: where you belong, who has power, how urgent your life feels. When you travel, consume foreign media, or befriend people outside your bubble, you're touring alternate reality designs. Some feel liberating, others deeply wrong, but each reveals that what you call just the way things are is, in fact, one particular architectural style among many. Technology is rapidly becoming a dominant co-architect of our realities. Social media feeds, recommendation algorithms, virtual and augmented reality, they all act like interior designers for your mind. Your feed is not a neutral window, it's a curated hallway lined with rooms that keep you scrolling. Each click teaches the system what version of the world keeps you engaged: outrage, comfort, conspiracy, aesthetics. The more accurately it predicts you, the narrower your reality can become. At the same time, VR and AR make the metaphor literal. We're entering spaces where code can rewrite physics, identity, even social norms. These environments will train expectations that bleed back into offline life. If you don't consciously intervene, you're outsourcing your inner architecture to systems optimized for profit, not wisdom. Recognizing this doesn't mean abandoning tech. It means stepping into the role of lead architect instead of passive tenant. All of this can sound overwhelming, so let's bring it down to the level of your personal life. How exactly is your reality currently architected? Start with identity statements. I'm shy. I'm bad at conflict. I'm the responsible one. These aren't just descriptions, they're load-bearing beams. Around them, you arrange relationships, career choices, even daily habits. Then look at your default assumptions about others. People can't be trusted, or everyone is judging me, or no one understands. Each assumption builds invisible walls and corridors that channel you toward certain behaviors and away from others. Finally, examine your sense of what's possible. If your blueprint says, people like me don't do X, your perception will filter out paths that contradict that rule, no matter how real they are. Mapping these elements isn't about blame. It's architectural forensics, understanding how your current world was built so you can consciously remodel it. So how do you actually re-architect reality without drifting into pure fantasy? The key is not to abandon constraints, but to consciously renegotiate them. First, cultivate meta-awareness, the ability to notice your perceptions as constructions. Meditation, journaling, and good therapy all help you see the blueprint instead of only living inside it. Second, deliberately expose yourself to alternative architectures, books, cultures, disciplines, conversations that stretch your assumptions. Treat them as visiting other cities, not to copy them wholesale, but to steal design ideas. Third, run small experiments. If your blueprint says, I'm terrible at meeting new people, don't rewrite it overnight. Test it. One conversation, one event, one new behavior. Use the resulting data to update your model. Re-architecting reality is less like demolishing a building and more like an iterative renovation, wall by wall, room by room, while you keep living in it. Let's consolidate the blueprint we've drawn tonight. First, perception is not a camera, it's a construction process. Your brain uses predictive models to fill gaps, turning sparse sensory input into a coherent world. Second, this architecture isn't built alone. Family, culture, language, institutions, and technology all supply templates, stories, and constraints. What feels like just the way things are is often the way things were designed around you. Third, your internal tools, attention, emotion, identity, belief, operate like ongoing renovation crews. They constantly reinforce certain structures while neglecting others, shaping what you notice, how you feel, and what you believe is possible. Finally, this architecture is malleable. By gaining awareness of your models, Exposing yourself to alternative designs and running small reality testing experiments, you can begin to adjust the layout of your everyday experience without losing touch with shared reality. If this exploration of reality architecture shifted how you think about perception even slightly, treat that shift as the first crack in a wall that never belonged there. From here, you have a choice. Slide back into autopilot or become the lead architect of your own experience. That doesn't mean inventing a fantasy world. It means questioning inherited blueprints, updating outdated models, and deliberately training attention toward the realities you want to nurture: curiosity, nuance, connection, agency. If you want more deep dives into consciousness, psychology, and the invisible structures shaping your life, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss upcoming episodes. I'd love to hear in the comments, what part of your reality architecture are you most interested in renovating after this video? Share this with someone who might be ready to redesign their inner world. Thanks for watching, and remember, the world you see is a work in progress. Build wisely.